Hey guys, what's up? It's Stacking Chairs, the youth ministry podcast all about serving in youth ministry, whether it be youth group or youth camp, whatever God has you serving in, that's what we're talking about. I'm one of your hosts, Josh Paul Hamus. I'm joined by my fellow stacking friend,
Kyle Gray. So I thought of you. I think of you a lot, but that sounds strange when I just say it like that.
Well, you know, Paul prayed for the churches and he wrote letters.
I thank my God upon all my remembrances of you.
Yeah, like he remembered
all the way back to Master Yoga.
Oh yeah, Kyle and I did a video a very long time ago on the island, 2014.
2014, Josh.
Yeah, 10 years ago now.
Woo!
Yeah, that. Yeah.
But last night at youth group, we combined services, middle school and high school.
Okay.
And we didn't have enough chairs.
Oh, really?
And so I was sitting towards the back, and I'll tell you in a minute why I was sitting towards the back, because I don't advocate
You're Baptist.
Leaders hanging out in the back rows or in the back walls. Like the walls will stay up themselves. Hence, this is not Wall Standers podcast.
Yes.
But I got up and I walked over and I looked at one of the other leaders and I said, "We need more chairs, don't we?" Yeah. And she said, "Yeah, we do." Yeah. And I started to walk out and she goes, No, they're in the back of the room on the other side. And I said, "Oh, yeah, that's right. We've got those. We have those like one. Yeah. It's a one roller that the chairs stack like this.
Oh, like
they kind of
flat?
stack. No, they kind of stack like. If you're watching the podcast, but Josh, by the way, where can we watch the podcast?
They can watch it on our fellowship YouTube channel, Word of Life Fellowship on YouTube. You can keep up with that.
So it stacks like this.
Oh.
So it's like one.
So you can't see. It's kind of leaned back.
Yeah, it's kind of like diagonal.
Yeah.
And they stack upon each other. And
multiples,
and then you just roll
so you have multiple chairs that you just kind of.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm moving that around, and I thought, I feel like Josh right now. I feel like Josh would be. And so then you're pulling them off, and I'm like, I could handle like 3 of these at a time. And I'm like, is my wife watching?
Yeah, I feel that. We had our middle schoolers recently come up to our youth group. So we do 6th grade through 12th. And so we have like 5 new kids. And then we also started doing, we hadn't done like singing, like a worship time in our youth group. And I don't think ever since I've been there.
Oh, because you went through that period of time where nobody was respecting worship. And so like Matt Redman?
I don't know. I don't know what you're referencing.
I'm going to look it up. You go.
So we had a couple of our kids who have been leading worship in the church now who wanted to do it. And so now we're actually, we got to sing last night, which was really encouraging. And then we had 5 new kids come up. And so that was really encouraging. And by the time this podcast airs, it'll be months later since that's happened. But we have the kickoff event, and it's been super encouraging to see these new kids come in.
Matt Redman went through a period of time where the church he was at they weren't really taking worship seriously from what I understand, or they were only like worship time was only what you sang, and so they decided as a church for a undisclosed period of time, or that they weren't gonna sing.
Oh, okay.
And so their church didn't sing.
Really, as a congregation?
So that they could say, we're not going to just make it singing for singing's sake.
Yeah.
Why are we singing? Well, we always sing. Well, what are you going to, well, how can you have church if you don't have songs?
Yeah.
And so at the end of that, he had came back and he had written the song, Heart of Worship.
Oh, nice.
And so, when the music fades and all is stripped away,
and
I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. I bring you more than a song, for a song itself is not what you have desired. I offer much deeper within than the way things appear.
What an interesting history behind that. I didn't realize that.
I'm coming back to the heart of worship.
We used to sing that in
and it's all about you. I want to know who Hugh is. And it's all about Hugh.
Oh, no.
It's all about Hugh.
Capital Y.
Oh, that's right. I was like, yeah. Yeah, because then it sounds a little irreverent because I say Hugh Jesus.
Listen, I'm not going to.
So there's also a little fun fact about Kyle. The choir the high school that I grew up in had a choir, and no different than most other high schools.
Sure.
Did your high school have a choir? Did your Christian school?
I went to a small Christian school.
So like you sang by yourself in the choir?
Yeah, it's just me. No, everybody was either in the play or on the soccer team or on the basketball team.
So who watched?
Parents.
For like chapels and stuff.
Yeah, chapels. Everyone just was up there on the stage. There's only like 30 kids in my high school.
But we had a tradition that we would end every Christmas choral concert with the Hallelujah chorus.
Oh, sure.
And so that was a lot of fun. But
was it a public school?
Yeah, it was a public school.
Oh, okay.
But I think
you're not even in the Bible Belt.
No, I think my choir director was like of faith. I don't
Unitarian.
know if he might have been. We sang at a Unitarian church before.
Could have been Unitarian then.
He's a great guy.
Sure.
If for any reason, Mr. Roden, you come across this podcast and you hear about it, I think you're an awesome guy. I just never interacted with him he was very spiritual.
What if he reaches out now?
Yeah, he's like, so crazy story.
Okay,
hold on. I had a drama teacher.
Okay.
Who came to my school my 9th grade year and had a lot of pushback. She was the from Vermont, like crazy, like different from us, Pennsylvania people. But one of my favorite teachers, just this awesome lady. And one day, probably, I want to say it was before I moved here.
Okay.
So I moved here 10 years ago.
Yeah.
A little over 10 years ago. I was like, I'm going to find this teacher, not on social media, not on Instagram, not on Facebook.
Yeah.
I think even at that time I was able to check, which is why I think it was before I moved here. I think I was even able to check MySpace. And
that was a long time ago though.
But I found a person that worked in theater on Broadway. Not like one of the performers, but like back, and it was the person's name. And I thought, what are the chances? And I thought, you know what? Who cares? And I wrote them an email and they wrote back and they were like, absolutely. It's me, Kyle. How you doing? This is great. I was like, that's crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's wild.
Small world.
That's wild. Anyways, back to my, what's a Hallelujah chorus? Joy to the world. And one of the lines that, and wonders of his love and wonders of his love. Well, there was a guy in my choir whose name was Dan Wonders.
Okay.
And so to this day, I always sing, Dan wonders of his love, Dan wonders of his love, Dan wonders of his love.
So yeah, and wonder, yeah, that's great. I don't know how to keep up with this. This has just been like one contiguous contiguous. Yeah,
wouldn't it be continuous?
My friend contiguous. No, I'm just kidding. I was just thinking like one long like bunny trail of stories.
Listen, man.
What's the topic again today?
Today we're talking about bivocational ministry. So I'm having a bivocational conversation.
Yeah.
Or bi-conversational conversation.
It's like that. You ever seen
topic?
That interview's like, I'm bi-winning. I went over here. I went over there.
Winning.
Yeah. No, yeah. So
who was? Oh, never mind.
What's his name? Sheen.
Charlie Sheen. Yeah, I was like, are we about to
talk about, we don't condone Charlie Sheen.
No, we don't.
Anyway, bivocational ministry. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there actually.
Hold on. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man.
We talked. I don't think you guys don't know. We talked for 45 minutes before this, just kind of catching up.
We did. Well, and Josh, part of the reason why we wanted to talk about this is because there are a lot of you out there that have bivocational ministries that are bivocational people. Josh is bivocational. I'm bivocational. We actually have some friends that are trivocational.
Well, the bivocational aspect of my life doesn't even include my youth ministry, like what I do with my church.
Well, but you're not paid through that, are you?
Well, that's what I mean. It's not one of my vocations.
Yeah.
So like, the topic of what we like, the whole thing is youth ministry, right? And so we say youth camp or youth group. Typically we talk about youth group. But the youth group ministry I have isn't even a job of mine. It's just I'm a leader in the youth group. The two jobs I have outside of that are the bivocational part of my life. Now you are, at this time of recording, it'll be months since you've done it, but you are now an interim pastor
again
at another church. So you guys got to see the
which going back to what I said, hey, I'll tell you why I'm sitting in the back of the row or the back row, because last night was my last night at the first youth group that I was the interim youth pastor at, and it was really, really cool. They thanked me. Once we hit summer, the church knew and the church knows and the new church knows. I don't think they're really excited about it, but knows that once we hit summer that like I'm not there on Wednesdays because I kind of have this thing called camp.
They said the new church isn't excited.
I don't think they're as excited about the idea of me not being there on Wednesdays in the summertime.
I thought you meant they're not excited about you being the interim pastor.
I can't tell you how everybody feels. But what I appreciated is so I had been gone for a couple weeks and they said, hey, can you come back on this date? And we want to just thank you and celebrate what you did. And it was really, really cool. Another little sidestep is a buddy of mine just celebrated with his ministry that he's still with, something, kind of a big endeavor in his life. And they were like, hey, let's celebrate you now while you still work here. And it's kind of one of those things of seeing that opportunity of celebrate. Hey, can I challenge you guys? If you are listening, celebrate your leaders, celebrate the volunteer leaders while they're still working for your ministry. But at the same time, celebrate those people on their way out. It just was a really cool opportunity. The high school youth pastor said, hey, Kyle, can you come forward? And he said, hey, all of you who have been middle schoolers under his ministry, you don't have to, but would you come forward? And they all prayed over me. It was just a really, really cool thing. So I was sitting in the back because I'm like, I'm a visitor now.
Just imagine this horde of middle schoolers coming up, like all kind of like waddling up to pray and like all like mumbling skibidi, skibidi, skibidi or something like that.
They were saying skibidi riz only in
I
Ohio,
knew it.
Ohio.
Yeah, phantom tax and all that. I can't, we're going to talk about this in the future. I can't keep up with
my jobs or my conversation.
No, Gen Alpha. Like,
listen,
the terms and
this
the
is
slang. And it's so
like
crazy. I had like boomers don't like millennials. That's always been like your avocado toast and you spend money on Netflix. And that was always, and I was like, come on,
as a millennial, you would say that.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'd like boomers. Give us a break. I look at Gen Alpha and I get it a little bit. I'm like, why are you saying this? Why you keep yelling skibidi? Like Gen Z, I kind of kept up with. Gen Alpha is a different animal entirely.
So let's be honest. The next 3 years, okay. My name is Kyle Gray. It is 11:15 on August 15th, 2024.
Now you guys get to see how far ahead we recorded this.
All right. Mark my words, the next 2 to 3 years of youth ministry is going to be a little awkward. Here's why. Your youth group still has enough true Gen Zers.
Yeah.
Like the next 2 years, your upperclassmen, and hear me out for a second, are true Gen Zers. Or in other words, they're far enough away from the overlap.
Yeah.
And most of your leaders are all Gen Zers. But your 7th grade, your 6th and 7th grade right now are Gen Alpha. Now, I also don't have a problem saying that there's a chance that your 9th graders, 8th graders, 7th graders are kind of in that influx mix of like they're a little bit of both. But it's just going to be,
it's going to be time to study
until we get settled as to what Gen Alpha is and how we.
Now, we're not oblivious to the fact that a generation doesn't just like turn key the minute that you get to the next year.
No, once you do the promotional Sunday.
Congratulations, Gen Alpha. We now have no idea how to deal with you. No, it's not going to be that stark, but there are some changes to the generation. I mean, this is the generation that has been exclusively raised with screens. Like Gen Z, you could argue, okay, when they were born, potentially they were still, desktop computers that, reach this far back. Right. But now every Gen Alpha kid, almost all of them, if not all of them, have had an iPad in their hand at least once by the time they were 3. Right.
So check this out. We sit at a time where most, I do not have the stats on this, so this is just my perspective on what I've observed. Yeah. But most of your smaller churches, and even some of your larger churches, the leadership are Gen Xers.
Yeah, for the most part.
Probably most of your vocation of your volunteer leaders that you're going after right now are older Gen Zers
or younger millennial.
Excuse me. I'm 29. Excuse me. Your youth groups are run. So the upper leadership are Gen Xers. Your youth pastors, probably a lot of them are millennials. Yeah. With Gen Z leaders as the volunteer leaders preparing to minister to Gen Alpha.
Yeah. You're
like we sit at a really crazy time, and this is where you're gonna see this shift of millennials. Just hold on to it because us Gen Xers felt this. Okay. In some ways you're going to start to feel pushed out, but you're not. They need you. The Gen Alpha need you. The Gen Z need you. But can I be honest with you? I think I'm one of those like influxer people because I think I was raised enough by boomers that I understand that mentality.
Sure.
But I'm young enough on the Gen X date list that it depends on what year range you look, because I'm either Gen X or millennial, and I get both sides.
Yeah.
So you know what? Skibidi Riz.
Oh goodness. All right, and thank you for watching Stacking. Should we? I mean, we talked about talking about bivocational ministry. Are we making the shift to just talk about Gen Alpha and Gen Z, or are we going to talk about bivocational ministry here?
I don't know, Josh.
This is kind of like a meta moment for you guys.
This is kind of that influx
We've done
moment.
This before, yeah.
We
This
have.
is the first time we've done this.
Well, here's what I'll say. I think you bring a different perspective than I bring in the bivocational ministry.
Yeah, let's talk about it because we can talk about Gen Alpha because I want to prep a little bit.
I definitely think that there are some things that we need to start bringing in.
Yeah, we can
in
talk
fact,
about it.
Obviously, some of you are like, oh, there's already deep studies on Gen Alpha. There are already some deep studies on Gen Alpha. The problem is it's such a brand new understanding. I don't think we'll really truly understand about them until, like I said, the next 3-4 years. Because if you think about it right now, my son who is in 7th grade in 4 years will be in 10th, 11th grade.
Yeah.
And so that's when it's like, okay, I feel like we'll start to finally understand.
Yeah. Does that freak you out a little bit?
It does. My oldest is a senior. She's in her senior year. She's actually in Bermuda right now for their camp, and Hurricane Ernesto.
I was gonna say
is headed their way.
Yeah.
But the nice thing with Bermuda is their houses are built to withstand everything.
Yeah. They're not.
Unaware. But you better believe I'm still freaking out.
I don't blame you. I'd be a little nervous too.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So let's talk
bivocational ministry. You started to explain what bivocational ministry is, but go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Give it.
So bivocational ministry, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory if you know the two, words that are there, the roots of them. Bi meaning two, vocational meaning your place of work. I mean, vocation. So bivocational ministry just means you minister over here, you minister over there. I'm bivocational.
But can we figure out what are we talking about specifically? And here's the reason why I'm asking.
Yeah.
I believe that everybody ought to be bi-ministerial.
Well, yeah. I mean, you need to be
in the sense of like
in your church
everybody ought to be ministering, and everybody ought to be using their gifts and talents and abilities to serve everybody that around them. We ought to be serving inside and outside of our local church. And when I say inside and outside, I mean inside our local church and outside as in through different things outside of the ministry of the local church.
Yeah,
I think it's okay to do that. Like, how are you reaching the person at your grocery store for Jesus and ministering to your neighbors? And but the reason why I ask is because bivocational specifically talks about the fact that people who receive a wage.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're a little different in this situation because you don't receive a wage. About to oust you right now. Tell us if he receives a wage, Matt.
No. As a youth leader, no.
As a youth leader,
no. My bivocational is actually between Word of Life and then the business that I own. And so, I mean, typically, let's go back a little bit to the defining part. Typically, when you're bivocational, people think of like, okay, I'm a youth pastor. I work 20, 30 hours a week at the church. I have an office there potentially. And I'm making sure that everything happens with the youth ministry. I'm an associate pastor, something like that. And then the other 20 hours, the other 30 hours or whatever, however that splits up is spent. I'm working in an office. I'm delivering pizzas, whatever you're doing. I mean, no, I don't know why you're laughing. I know why you're laughing. Anyway, there is another youth. There was a youth pastor that I know, not the thing you're laughing at. There was a youth pastor that I knew who was actually a senior pastor.
What?
Who worked at a pizza shop throughout the week, and I know people. My neighbor who I have a ton of respect for, works at a Chick-fil-A, and I'm pretty sure is the manager there, and then also serves in a local ministry, and so. And myself included, like I work at Word of Life. The two places I work in are kind of both ministries in their own regard. I work at Word of Life full time, and then I also do side works. And so, am I bivocational? Yeah, kind of. I'm more of like a vocational with a side job.
You're bivocational, but not in ministry.
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter. You still minister.
Is Word of Life not a ministry?
Come on. You
what do you mean? Come on.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, I know.
You probably didn't know this. I worked at a pizza shop.
Did you?
I did. I worked at a pizza shop. I washed dishes. Anili's Pizzeria.
Oh,
down in Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania.
Anili's
fantastic
Pizzeria. If you ever want to be on the podcast,
listen, I would happily have the guys from Anili's. They are awesome. They are fantastic. Although I don't think that the main guys that when I was there that were running it are still running it. They probably are running it
when you were a kid.
From the top. They're still laying the cheese on the pizza.
So, I mean, Kyle, you're also, I mean, in all due, like, for all intents and purposes.
I thought you were going to say in all due respect.
No, not respect. No, for all due like understanding or something. I didn't know exactly what I was going to say. But you're also bivocational for all intents and purposes.
I am. So never intended to be bivocational. Did not feel like I needed to be.
Sure.
At the same time, I'm about to have 3 kids in braces and I have to replace my roof. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, the roof
Jesus
replacements.
Take the wheel.
It's not cheap.
This is the most I've ever sung on this podcast.
Yeah. Are you looking at a HELOC? Are we going to get into the financial side of things?
We're not. But somebody did stop by my house and do one of those presentations, which I then found out is illegal.
About the roof?
Yeah.
Because you're in a non-soliciting or whatever.
But $66,000.
To replace your roof?
To replace the roof. I was like, does it also have jetpacks connected to it? Like, is it like, can I press a button and all the balloons from up, like carry it to a different spot? No, but yeah, so 2 years ago, I was going to say 2 years ago, well, depending on when this podcast comes out, 2 years ago, the church that we were attending called us up and said, hey, would you consider being an interim youth pastor with us? And I thought, man, that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah. Did not realize how much I would love doing it. Mm-hmm. Can I tell you what's crazy is my dad is a pastor. That's not the crazy part. But watching my dad as a pastor.
Is that the crazy part?
Yeah. I sat there and I thought, man, I don't think I could ever do that job.
Oh, yeah.
But man, I loved being a youth pastor to these kids. So like last night when I was there and they were praying over me, and it was the first time. I don't think any of my leaders listen to this, but it was the first time that I sat there and I thought, man, like, Lord, why didn't you lead me here? Like it was, man, these are awesome kids. I pray I stay in connection with those kids and with those leaders and with those people because, man, they were just so encouraging. I had a number of the leaders come up to me last night and just say, man, Kyle, just thank you so much for what you did and for being here and talking to some of those students. And it was really, really encouraging. But I just sat there and I thought, I never intended doing this, number one, at all. Number two, for 2 years.
Yeah.
I was there. And so the funny thing is now I'm at another church.
Mm-hmm. That's why I said you're going to get business cards that just say interim pastor.
Yeah. So if you need me to be your interim youth pastor, no, I actually joked around. I'm just gonna go, okay, I worked this one. And then in my time, because literally I could tell this one was coming to an end. Yeah. And so I started just talking to a couple of other youth pastors just saying, hey, listen, if you need any help, I'd love to be a main leader for you. And they're like, you're not going to stay at Idlewild? And I said, I don't know, because I didn't know how the new guy would feel me coming, me still being there with him coming in. But bivocational ministry, man, I have so much more respect for those of you that are out there. Yeah. My youth pastors growing up, both of my youth pastors, my junior high youth pastor, the guy that was the senior high youth pastor while I was in junior high, both of them had full-time jobs and they did ministry on the side. I don't know if the church paid them. Greg Hench, did the church pay you?
Right in.
Actually, just text me, Greg.
Just text me.
But yeah. And then when the church was like, we really need to hire a youth pastor, it was not until after I graduated and after I was in college and kind of even out of college that they took on a full-time youth pastor.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And
it takes time.
And I've already told this story, but that was my concept of youth ministry. So when I was at the Bible Institute and people were, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to get my degree in elementary education and be a drama coach and do youth ministry. Why don't you just do youth ministry? That's not a real job. Because I just thought, that's what you do on the side.
Well, and I think that's also not like, I think it's also commendable to those who are in youth ministry. They may get a little bit of money. They might not get a little bit of money. Maybe it's a stipend, whatever. There's a lot of you guys out there who listen to this podcast, like your entire reason that you're in youth ministry is because it's a passion. You work 40 hours a week, 45 hours a week, maybe 30 hours a week, whatever it is. You're working a full-time job. You may have a family. You may not. Whatever your life looks like, you balance all those things around having an intentional pastoral ministry. Whether you're called a pastor or not, you're leading that youth group. You're leading them like spiritually. You're going to their games. You're having discipleship meetings.
Oh man,
you're putting
so much
time
respect.
and effort. Yeah, I have always like had so much respect, not always. When I understood the depth of what those people were doing, I had such a level of respect for people. Like my first youth pastor he called himself a youth leader. He didn't want the term pastor or whatever. It was actually my uncle. I have so much respect for him for putting the time and effort to do that role. Oh, yeah. And then when our full-time youth pastor came in, he did fantastic. And I have a ton of respect for him too, in a different regard, because we're just talking about like how much time and effort it takes to do both things.
And let's address the fact there are some churches that are out there that just financially cannot hire a full-time guy.
Yeah.
And you've got to have respect for that guy that's sitting there going, man, my ministry that I would happily just give everything to cannot financially support me and my family.
Yeah.
And so again, we understand that is some of your situation. And so you've got to figure out, how do you balance that? Because really, something's going to give. Something is going to get the lowest amount of focus and love. And Josh, that's where I think we can run into problems and trouble, because if you're not constantly watching that, it could either become your actual job, and then your actual job is going, you're not actually here.
Yeah.
And not everybody has a boss that you're like, hey, boss.
Yeah.
I'm a youth pastor. Oh yeah, we'll work with you. We'll help you out. Not. In fact, I would even argue probably most people are not in that situation where the world cares that you want to just be a full-time youth pastor.
To Word of Life's credit, they're very flexible when it comes to
ministry.
Very
flexible. I still remember sitting down with Rich Andrews. High kudos to Rich. Rich, by the way, whenever you want to come back and be a part of the podcast, you're more than welcome to come back. It sounds strange that I'm inviting my boss.
Like he's not like right up the.
Well, actually, right now he's not.
Oh yeah, he's not a 5-minute.
Well, actually, right now when you're listening to this,
he's probably in his office.
Continuum. But I remember him saying, "Well, let's talk about what that's going to look like."
Yeah.
Because when we hit camp, there are definitely some, you can be at wintertime, you can be there on Wednesdays, not on Sundays. On summertime, you can be there on Sundays, not on Wednesdays, just because of the different things that are going. Yeah. But that's some of your situation.
Yeah.
But Josh, I would be willing to, again, my name is Kyle Gray. It is 11:30. No, seriously, let's just be fully open.
Yeah.
Probably most of us let our family struggle the most.
Well, and that is very easy to do so. That's because of talking with you and talking with other people. I'll be honest, that the number one priority of where I've put my time and effort in not letting things slip has been, and I mean,
because I'm encouraging you, or because you see how discouraging it is?
No, because you've been encouraging of like, hey, your family needs to not be the one that suffers for it. And that's something that my wife and I've had to talk through. There are times where I've let them slip. Like, I was doing a bunch of stuff for my neighbor across the street because I want to be able to present the gospel to him. I want to help him in the ways that he needs. And it got to a point where I was fixing his sprinkler system, and my wife's like, "Hey, our sprinklers don't work. Like, you need to fix our sprinklers." Now, first of all, it's a foot valve and it's under the sidewalk. You have to take out the entire sidewalk, pull the foot valve, and then pull it out.
It's a foot pump, like you got to pump.
No, it's a foot valve. No, the valve's stuck open. So, anyway, it's not an easy fix. So first of all, it's not the same thing. Anyway, but the takeaway was still the same, which was, okay, my wife's right. I need to be intentional about spending time with them and taking care of the things around my home and not neglecting it. And so I've worked through a lot of that. If we could talk a little bit about like some of the pitfalls, I think that's one of them for bivocational ministry. I think the other one that I think a lot of you guys out there, if you're bivocational, I'm sure you deal with the same pitfall that I do, which is burnout and resentment. And I can easily, and I'll be completely frank with you. Right now, it's something that, I mean, Kyle and I were talking a little bit about this before the episode as we're kind of building into this subject.
You said the quiet part out loud.
And I do. That's it. Guys, I think if you can appreciate anything that I'm going to do on this podcast,
we're going to be honest.
We're going to be honest. We're going to say the quiet part out
loud.
No,
I think you got to be tempered.
Yeah, of course.
Quiet time today talked about that. Yeah. Well, not quiet time for your quiet time today, but our quiet time.
Because whenever you listen to this. No, I think it's easy to resent either the ministry that you're serving in or the other job that you have, either for flexibility, maybe because, I mean, a lot of you're in bivocational ministry, not because it's like, oh, this sounds like fun, I want 2 jobs. Like, no, you're probably in bivocational ministry either because the ministry you're in can't afford to hire you full time, Well, that's probably
That's the only reason.
situation. That's it.
Or you're like Kyle Gray and you have this weird like
Obsession.
I want to, oh, there's a need. Let me help. Oh, there's a need. Well, and Josh, I will say this. I will say, in fact, I was talking to a mom last night who came up and two of her kids are in the youth group. One in high school, one in middle school, and both just solid young people. Love the Lord, not perfect. And I said that to the mom. You're not perfect. They're not perfect. I said, but sometimes we in youth ministry, and I think we need to talk about this at some point, we lead our kids to wrong places in this way. We only pay attention to the kids that are hurting and struggling in sin, or we pay more attention to the kids that are hurting and struggling in sin. And so we kind of create this idea of, if you want to get the youth pastor's attention and focus, hurt and struggle with sin.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of rejoicing and celebrating and encouraging those ones that are growing. And I said, can I tell you, it has been such an encouragement to watch your kids. And I've tried to be vocal with your kids of, hey, listen, I know you're not perfect, but I'm watching you be in a growing relationship with Jesus. And man, that's so awesome. Let's champion you on.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we can find ourselves in this place where, like I just said, we feel pulled in every direction. And so you can get your family bitter and angry and mad at you. Your kids, maybe your wife is like, oh, well, this is like, my wife and I watched a lot of couples in ministry have their kids resent ministry and resent the Lord.
Yeah.
But the moms and dads were like, oh, well, this is the way that you do. You know, family comes after ministry. And do I think that there are moments that I say yes to one thing and wait to another, or no? Yes, there are some times I celebrate my kids all the time. Or at least I try to, and say, thank you so much for letting me do this. And there's other times I look at Word of Life or this over here and say, hey, I can't be here. I remember the church that I'm at right now. Well, can you start earlier? No. Well, why not? Well, because I'm going to take some time and be with my wife. And just so you know, I have some opportunities, and I'm going to continue to take time to be with my wife, because some of you know me, I did it wrong, and I can still do it wrong, but I did it wrong for a lot of years. But your family, your kids, your business, your youth group, and if I had to choose somebody to not be happy with me, I really struggle with who.
Yeah, it's easy too. I completely understand. It's easy to figure out. And I think the easiest time to like get some perspective is when you have a 3-year-old, because a 3-year-old doesn't really mince their words. They have very few of them that they can use. And so my daughter will look at me and say, Daddy, are you going to work? And I'm like, no, sweetheart, I'm here. She's like, you're working. And I'm like, no, baby, I'm just on the laptop. But I'm like, here right now. She's like, no, you're working. Like, she's like, I work with you. And then she'll sit there and she'll sit on the laptop too or whatever, and, you know, beat on the keys and
that's why your thing looked so amazing.
But
she really corrected that.
She fixed it,
yeah, she did.
No, but that is kind of where I've gotten a lot of perspective. And boy, if you're in a ministry where you can't, now here's the thing, there's a balance. You can't be the guy who's always saying no to everything and saying, well, I'm only going to work this many and I'm not going to go above and beyond when it's necessary. Like, there is a balance that you need to find, and it comes with prayerful consideration and your heart being in the right place. And I'll be honest with you, there are times where I resent Word of Life and say, we're gonna be a little honest today. And I'm not gonna listen, this is not to Word of Life's detriment, it's to my detriment, where I say, Word of Life, I resent you because, and so it's like, okay, have I communicated this to my supervisor? Have I talked to them about this thing? And there are times where Word of Life has come back and said, hey, we can't meet you here. We can't help you. And so then I said, okay, well then we're going to have to find a compromise. And like, I've had very honest conversations with my supervisor. We've found compromises, but when I don't get my way, all of a sudden that frustration is no longer resentment, because I don't resent Word of Life for being the way that they are, or for my supervisor making the decision he made, because I've been honest and open in the conversation. And I've said, okay, I either have to come to a compromise and come to the conclusion together, or I need to decide, okay, is this the right spot for where I'm at? And like, God's called me to be here right now. And so I'm going to continue to be here.
But isn't that life?
And it is. And that's exactly my point, is you have to be having honest conversations with people and expectations and what you need to work through.
No, it's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah. And if you,
thank you, Josh.
No, but it doesn't automatically mean that you get to resent somebody or resent an organization for doing the opposite. It just means that you have to work through that.
But let's be honest.
The same way the church does.
How much do we, as Christians, and I'm going to call us out as Christians.
Sure.
How much do we as Christians operate like the world's mentality? And well, and let me tell you what my boss did. Let me tell you how they weren't there for me. Let me tell you and it's like, hold up. You agreed to be a part of this job. You agreed to be a part of this thing. Sometimes I know it's really tough what you're talking about. What really gets into the hard thing is when you've got kids that either are growing in their Christ but that are needy and not just needy, like, oh, I need, but like genuinely like, man, they need you.
Yeah. And we're not talking about like, okay, your boss wants to do it this way and you want to do it this way. And it's like, I've talked to them and they don't want to listen. That's a conversation for another time. We've talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
We're talking mostly right now, like, to be frank, we're talking about like, hey, I'm in a spot financially where I need to do this, or I'm in a spot where it comes to my time management where I need to do this. And you have to come to a compromise and work through those things. If you're bivocational, I guarantee you have to work through those things. Hey there, youth leaders. Let's get real for a second. Do you ever feel overwhelmed juggling lesson planning, organizing events, and actually trying to connect with your students? It's like there's never enough time in the day, right? Well, what if you could reclaim some of that time and focus on what really matters? Word of Life Youth Ministries understands the struggle, and they've got something just for you. A free youth group series designed to save you time and help you build deeper relationships with your students. Each lesson comes fully equipped with detailed teaching notes, small group guides, and engaging discussion starters. No more scrambling to put together content last minute. But that's not all. They've included a Parent Connect feature to keep parents in the loop about what their kids are learning each week. Plus, everything integrates seamlessly with the Multiply app, where you can track your students' spiritual growth and even reward their hard work. Imagine walking into your next youth meeting feeling prepared and stress-free, with more time to actually engage with your students. Picture the impact you could make when you're not bogged down by planning and admin tasks. So visit the link in the show notes and download your free youth group series today. Let's get back to what really matters: connecting with your students and making a lasting impact.
No, you have to. And that's where, so I had a younger guy. I won't say young guy, but a younger guy.
What's younger? Do you consider me younger?
Oh, you're definitely younger than me.
Well,
but
yeah,
I would not put this person in your age bracket category. They're younger than you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Millennials.
You're old.
Or you're Gen X.
But see, again, if you remembered, as the millennial you are, you don't listen to anything I'll find. I literally just said I'm the one.
Weird. I'm in the Gen X thinks they're better than everybody.
No, I don't think. I know.
I don't know. There's
anyways,
someone younger than me.
Yeah, somebody young. But we were talking about what they were involving themselves in, and a comment that I got was, if you don't keep them busy, they will make themselves busy. I can respect that. But I sat down with this young man and I said, I love the tenacity, and I encourage the tenacity. I encourage the desire and the drive.
Yeah.
But I would highly recommend that you and your wife sit down and go, okay, if we say yes to this, what are we saying no to? Yeah. Now, I don't think it ought to be, sometimes we talk about building a pros and cons list, and it's just pros if I do it, cons if I don't do it.
Yeah.
No, build a pros if I do it, cons if I do it, pros if I don't do it, cons if I don't do it.
Yeah.
But
that's a buy pro con list.
Right.
You pro con over here, you pro con over there.
Yeah. But I just sat there and I said, every time you say yes to this over here, you are going to say no.
Yeah.
And yes, praise God, his situation, his ministry, his job was all willing to be at the end of it. It was really, really cool to watch just the way that God worked it out. I don't know if I encouraged him. I don't know if I challenged him in that way, but I just sat there and I thought, I come from the mental thinking. I won't say the generation. I come from the mental place of thinking of I've got to step in and help. And I need to do everything.
You're probably raised. I don't think it's generational, because my dad raised me the same way, and it's innate inside of me.
Oh my goodness! And isn't it so hard?
Yeah.
And so you see the need. Like, for instance, last night, they at the very end they celebrated. They had popcorn, and they were like, "Hey!" I was like, "That's cool." I'm not like a big popcorn guy, but I was like, "That's pretty cool."
Do you guys even know me?
I eat ketchup packets. Now I'm gonna get ketchup packets. Actually, there was a kid who listens to the podcast who every time he saw me at camp would hand me a ketchup packet.
Why? I mean, cool.
Yeah. But But it's in that situation where it was all over the floor.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I have to pick it up. I have to pick it up. I have to pick it up.
That's also just being a dad. You just like have that you have that shop vac. You have that full like shop vac in your van.
Yes, you know what I did? Junior hires. It's a game right here. Come on over.
That's the best. All right, listen, guys. Complete side note: if you're ever having a hard time getting things picked up, especially water balloon fights, you make a competition.
Yep.
During VBS we did that. I said whoever picks up the most pieces of balloon gets to throw a water balloon at me at the end. All of it was cleaned up in like 2 minutes flat.
You're amazing. You're amazing.
Well, all right. Seems a little over the top.
You are close to immaculate.
Oh my God.
No, but again, I think you've got these different things of I've got let's divide it up into 3 realms, which I know there's more. Actually, I'm going to say there's 4 realms. The 4th realm, I think we
Sounds like
do
a Lord of the Rings thing. In the 4th realm.
In the 4th realm of the third land.
Now it sounds like Monty Python.
Number 1, your actual job.
Yes.
Your first full-time job. I think you need to sit down and go, okay, what is the thing that puts food on the table for myself and my kids?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, then I go, okay, I look, now these are not in like order of importance, but number 2 realm is my family.
Yeah.
Okay. My family, and I would break that up even between you and your wife, and then you and your wife and your kids.
Yeah.
Then I think number 3, you have your other thing that you're going to do. And if we're talking bivocational, it's the other thing that brings in excess funds, and maybe that plus your other first job
I was gonna say,
is the thing that puts food on the table.
What if both things and your
Right.
wife's job all put food on the table?
But the problem is one of those jobs has to come first.
Yeah,
One of those jobs has to.
Yeah.
One of those jobs at some point. There's almost never the possibility that I can think of, even if one of them is a day job and one of them is a night job, you still have something happen where something will conflict between the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And you're going to say yes to one. And I don't think you live in a perfect world that you always say that you're like, today I said yes, tomorrow I say no, tomorrow I say yes, today I say, and then the 4th.
I've had to use vacation time to fill in that.
Well, but that's interrupting your family. Family realm.
I'm losing. Yeah.
And
you're right.
And then the 4th realm is you.
Yeah.
Your personal development, your rest, your growth, which no, I'm not the guy sitting here advocating for, I need me time. But at the same time, I am the guy sitting here advocating for, I need me time.
Yeah.
For far too long, Josh, I was willing to neglect my personal spiritual development to make sure I was thinking that I was helping other people to spiritually develop. But to quote my friend Mike Calhoun, and by the way, Mike Calhoun, anytime you want to be on this podcast, but you cannot lead people to a place that you are not at or have not gone.
Absolutely. I just, speaking of bivocational jobs, one of my contracts is with a local church, and we were doing training videos, and the pastor said, he's like, we want people here like serving as volunteers. But if you're going to serve as a volunteer on a Sunday, you need to, one of the services that we have, they have 3 services. One of those services, you have to sit in and listen to. He goes, because you cannot help other people if you are not being fed. And they're absolutely right. Like you can't live a life where you're constantly going and you're not being spiritually and emotionally and even physically fed.
What the problem, Josh, is I guarantee you there are people out there that are like, no, I am. I would say you can't do it well.
What? Oh, to not feed yourself and then continue. Yeah, no.
You can't do it indefinitely, and you can't do it with excellence, and you can't do it. I definitely think you can't.
No, I don't think so. I'm in a season right now.
Let's be real honest. You and I have both done that in many ways.
I'm doing it this week. Yeah. Like I have to. Like for the next 3 weeks, I have enough contracts that I have stuff due this week, next week, and the following week.
For a 5% cut, I'll take it.
No, but the point is like I told my wife last night, actually, we had a real conversation. I said, Mela, for the next 3 weeks, every evening after you and the kids go to bed, I will be coming into bed after midnight, most likely, as I try and make sure that these contracts are all up to date. And that unfortunately is just the stage we're at right now. And Lord willing, in a couple of weeks, I'll be past that. But I think we also lie to ourselves. I mean, you've heard the lie, after this season, things won't be busy.
Right. So Josh, this is my lovingly push on you.
Please.
The moment that you become mad dad, bad dad, or sad dad, you got to figure out something that's going to stop.
Well, yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Just in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Even if it's no, I chose to put myself here. It's like, for instance, my second daughter, wanted to get a job somewhere. Come to find out that the place that she wanted to get the job doesn't have the capacity to hire her on, at least in the fall.
Yeah.
Possibly not even the whole entire year. And I said to her, okay, where else are you looking? Well, I'm not looking anywhere else. And I said, okay. Okay. Now, do I think my daughter should get a job? Yes, I think my daughter should get a job. But I definitely think my daughter should get a job when she wants to spend money,
Well, yeah.
and she wants to go places. And so at one point, I even said to her the comment of, I said something about her getting her license, and she says, no, I don't want to get my license because I don't want to have to pay for insurance. And I said, okay, well, you don't have to. I get that. I absolutely get that. I think that's her being fiscally, financially responsible. If she's like, I don't think I'm at a spot where I can, and we don't ask our kids to pay for all their insurance, but to share the load. But she said, "Oh, it's okay." And I said, "All right."
You don't have to be tri-vocational.
But you're willing. Yeah. I said, "But you're willing to chip in for gas money, right?" And she looked at me and she said, "Why?" I said, "We still want to go places, don't you?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, I'll just wait until everybody else wants to go places." I said, "No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You still want to go places. You still want to buy things. You still want to." My second daughter is learning to become an awesome chef. I mean, she's she's doing a phenomenal job. Lexi, if you are listening, I'm so proud of you. I'm not a big oatmeal cookie fan, but they smell amazing, and I'm telling you, they really make me want to eat them. But she is. But here's the problem. I'm like, Lex, I need you to start thinking. You still want to go to the grocery store and buy all these ingredients to make cookies.
Yeah.
That still has to come from someplace.
Yeah.
And so where are you looking? What are you going to find?
Yeah.
And again, I think sometimes I neglect to realize I'm saying yes over here, which means I'm saying no over here. And at the end of the day, I can blame all the reasons why I had to make that choice, but I still made that choice.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And so again, let me just say this, and I mean this with all the love in my heart. There are some of you that you are like, I'm absolutely miserable at my job, and I could never find a job elsewhere. No, I think you possibly could. I don't think we're called to live absolutely miserable lives.
No.
Well, I just can't make it. Well, possibly, but maybe you can. Maybe you shouldn't be doing all that you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh, you and I have both talked about at different times. Do I need to make a different, like right now with your side gigs? Do I need to make a definitive decision to bring in funding elsewhere?
Yeah.
The last thing in the world that I would ever want to talk about is me not doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I may be living above my means, and I may have to say no to Amazon Prime. I may have to say no to, and I tried to pick the most trite thing possible.
Yeah, with the bi-vocational stuff, there's
Amazon
also
Prime.
wisdom where you need to be, okay, am I getting into consumer debt that I don't need to? This isn't Dave Ramsey's podcast, but
you got to live like no one else.
So you can live like
so
no
you
one
can
else.
live like no one else.
Dave Ramsey.
Listen, I tell you what though, man.
It works for those who need to get out of debt. Don't get me started, because we had to wait a year because we didn't have credit. My wife didn't have credit history.
It works for those that work for themselves. I'm trying to find a way to live like
his little yeah.
Yeah.
No, listen, no qualms against Dave Ramsey. We're fine.
It works for those who work. There we go.
There we go. All I have to say is there are times where if you're like, oh, financially, we can't make this happen. And sometimes it might be like a want versus a need. And, but there are people, and I would argue like myself, who it comes down to it's a necessity. And so you're right. I need to decide,
like braces in a roof.
Like braces. Yeah. Well, you're going to have to get for the new roof. I'm surprised. That seems like a really high number.
Oh, it is. But don't worry. I literally, I didn't put the amount because I didn't think that was right.
Just because of the amount of eaves and stuff you have? Or?
And the
Did you have the peaks and stuff in there?
It's a peak roof. It's some different
Mine's
stuff. Yeah. That was really impressive. Wow.
Mine wouldn't be that
Somebody
bad.
make a sound GIF out of
I think it's less than 10,000 for mine.
I don't think I said the right word.
GIF?
Sound,
GIF? What do you say?
Sound,
GIF or
well,
GIF?
I said sound GIF and then I said sound GIF. Anyways, no, but
Sound GIF?
I know. See, Josh, I'm making stuff up. Stop.
Yeah, GIFs don't have sound.
No, they do. When you open them up and you hear the GIFs have.
When you open your GIFs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I open GIFs on Christmas.
Yeah, and my birthday. No, but I actually had a guy write me back and say, "Hey, I'll help you out," and I'm like, "Yeah, I still need to Anyways,
For gifts?
No, it's roofs. Come on.
Anyway, the point is I know some of you guys are out there like, hey, like I'm not in a financial constraint because I'm being unwise with my money. Like,
no,
like the Lord will provide. And I think that's, as I worked through that originally a few years ago of like, hey, like what am I going to do? Like Jesus says, like the birds have homes. Like, do you think that the Father cares about you any less? Like, which of you, would say like, hey, to your son, like, hey, you ask for bread and I give them a stone. Like the Lord is providing for us. And every time I've needed something, God has either given me work so that we can do it, or he's taking care of us in another way. So by no stretch am I saying like, oh, Word of Life's not taking care of me. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like God is taking care of me.
Yeah.
Like I don't give credit to anybody. Not myself, not my family, not my organizations I work for, like not my side business.
Yep.
The Lord has given us everything that we need. And so I think if I could give you any takeaway from this entire podcast is if you live in that hope that God's going to take care of you, there's no room for resentment in that. Now, there are room for frustrations and there are room for conversations and there's room for very honest conversations with people who need to have them, but with love, with patience, with prayer, and with trust in that God is going to take care of you. And that's the spot that I'm finding myself in more and more.
Well, and I think also if you are in a ministry realm, a ministry role, and you, like me, feel like it all has to get done, you have to realize that you need to quicker get to a spot where you're not doing it all.
Yeah.
Especially if you're bivocational.
Yep.
So again, I go back to my junior high years, which by the way, I've been corrected. It's middle school, not junior high. Just wait long enough. Maybe by the time this podcast comes out,
junior high will be cool again.
Yeah. But back to when I was in middle school, my junior high youth pastor, I know. It was a guy. I've said this before. He worked. He did a carpet cleaning business, carpet install. There's different things. But then surrounding him were 4 or 5 other couples. I love Greg Hench. I love his wife Beth. Beth was a nurse, so she could not be at every youth group thing. Sure. She was at some of them, but she wasn't at everything. But she was still involved. But Greg surrounded himself with 4 or 5 other couples, and so the girls had girls small group leaders, the guys had guy small group leaders. He was also a small group leader. We also had some college students that were helping out, and it kind of changed and rotated. But there were probably these stable 3 or 4 couples all throughout my middle school and high school years that were there because they loved us and there because they showed up, and they helped Greg and Dave and Jim all understand they didn't need to do it all. And so, especially if you're bivocational, again, you don't have to be the one leading. You don't have to be the one preaching all the time.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the one running the games all the time. You don't have to be the one doing the worship team. Let me tell you the thing that your mama should have told you a long time ago. It's not all about you. And I understand when I say that there are some elder boards, deacon teams, committees of the committee to talk about having a committee, to form a committee, to possibly talk about something that should happen in a committee, or pastors that are like, no.
She did that whole long thing. Or pastors.
Or pastors. That expect their youth guys to do it all, or their youth people to do it all. Yeah. Like, I get that. I understand that. And at the same time, I would go back to Josh, that has to be a conversation. Maybe you shouldn't be there.
Yeah, well,
and that's okay to say.
Paul gives the admonition to the Thessalonians. Don't grow weary in doing good.
Right.
I think the way you don't grow weary in doing good is finding a good balance. And maybe your church is doing too much. Maybe your ministry is doing too much, and you have to have that conversation with your supervisor of like, hey, I can't do this much. We're gonna have to figure out what to cut.
Right.
Or I'm gonna have to see what the Lord has for me somewhere else. Like,
right.
I've had those conversations.
Well, so I stand up at the end of not the end, but when I get an end of time, I'm the anyways, I was gonna make a low-key reference, but he who remains, that's what it is. But it's, whatever. Why are we on this rabbit trail?
I don't know.
Anyways, so I have the privilege of standing up at Devos every year talking to the leaders, and in my last 10 years, at least 2 or 3 times a year, sometimes more, but about 2 or 3 times I'll have a leader that will come up and will go, I think this is my last year. Not coming to your camp, but I think this is my last year doing youth ministry.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I would always be like, no, God, really wants you in here. No, God, you shouldn't leave. At the same time, I'm going, what? Maybe God is leading them on.
Yeah.
I just decided a number of years ago, I don't want it to be frustration that is the thing. If I reach a point where I have to leave and it's a frustration, I'm at fault.
Yeah, no.
I'm at fault.
No, I think and finding that, and we've talked about this, find that balance between like resigning yourself to like, okay, like I'm so frustrated, I'm just going to leave.
Yeah.
Like I think it's important that you just be very intentional about spending time in prayer, in meditation, in the holiness of God, and focusing on, okay, what does God actually have for me? Is it a legitimate frustration, or is this actually where God has me?
Right.
And that's not an easy conversation or easy thing to think
about. No,
about.
but again, that's where I would say, let me sit down. And I'm not saying that these are the only 4 realms, but whatever your first job is, and yes, we can go back and forth of do those flip-flop, whatever. Sure. But whatever your first job is, your family, and when I talk about your family, first and foremost, you and your wife. Second of all, you and your wife and your family, your kids or whatever. Thirdly, your second job. And fourth, yourself. And again, I'm not putting them in the order of importance or in the order of priority. I'm just saying those are the 4 realms that I can think of. When's the last time? I remember when the last time was for me that began, so now it's a regular occurrence, but that my wife and I sit down and we go, okay, let's plot out the next couple months and let's figure it out. I was on the road with Word of Life for one of their Christmas shows. And at that time, I was working for 2 branches of Word of Life. And the one branch that I was with the tour on was like, hey, thanks so much. Here's 1 or 2 things that we would like for you to add. There wasn't massive stuff in my brain. But I said, okay, good. I called my wife. Hey, well, literally within the span of that week, the other boss called and said, hey, I've got 4 or 5 dates I need you to add to your calendar. And I, being the goldfish that I am, did not pay attention to the fact that all of it started to overlap. And so my wife said, can you do me a favor? I said, yeah, baby, anything you want, mama. And I didn't say that. I'm still alive. And she said, can you pull out a piece of paper, make it into a calendar, and X out the days, figure out like the camp stuff, you're going to shade out those days. Yeah. The youth ministry stuff, you're going to X out those days, or you're going to polka dot those days or whatever. Yeah. And then I need you to figure out what days we get left. And man, when I sat there and I looked at that thing and I was like, I'm not giving my family like hardly any time. Yeah. And again, are there seasons like camp? Are there seasons? Yes. But in those seasons, my wife and I had to find ways to connect with our boys, find ways to connect with our girls, find ways for us to connect as a family and with each other. But sometimes you got to sit down and go, okay, what have I chosen to get myself into, or what am I going to get myself into? Yeah. Always get it in writing. Always know what you're agreeing to. Yes. Huge advocate of that. And have conversations. But again, I would say you don't have to be the only one. You should not be the only one. Man, it was really hard for me, Josh, to even not be the one doing announcements. Up at camp. Yeah. It was hard for me not to think I'm on the front row for every single meeting, because I sat there and I thought, no, it's important that everybody sees me. And then I realized, no, it's important that I let them know, hey, I'm taking time to rest. Yeah. I'm taking time to step away. Yeah. And not everybody understands that. Yeah. But,
well, even the last thing is like you said, the 4th realm is you. I think it's important that you time is also like time with God. And that's
100%.
Yeah. Because like, you can't forsake that.
No.
I think it's important. And I know you guys know that, so don't think I'm being...
Well, no, but was it Martin Luther or that said, I have so much going on, I can't but get up this early to pray for this long. Well, most people go, I can't wake up that early. I don't have enough time to pray. No. I have so much going on, I can't not wake up early and pray.
If you have a baby who's waking up all the time, you're like, oh, I'm too tired to wake up. All right, well, when the baby wakes up before, go wake up and pray. Yep. Like that's something that I've been doing a little bit. That's been encouraging. So anyway, this has been a nice and long one. I think there's a lot of moving pieces, and I think it's very dear to us because we're affected by it. This topic specifically, and so I hope you guys listening. I hope you're encouraged. I hope you're not like, well, this is my last reason. I'm done. Like, no, I hope you're encouraged to as in the Thessalonians when Paul writes says, don't grow weary in doing good. Find that balance. Figure out how you can do it in such a way that you can continue to serve and how you feel God's called you to serve.
Well, and I was thinking back, one of the things that I was preaching on in my Devo was I preached out of that in Galatians, where he says, do not grow weary in doing good, because in due season you will reap a good reward, you know? Yeah. And do good to all, especially those of the household of faith.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the one I'm thinking of is in 2 Thessalonians.
I'm sure. I'm saying it's not. I'm just saying it's amazing to me.
It's repeated.
But why does Paul repeat it? Because he knows that we can grow weary in doing good.
I just went through the epistles again. We should talk about that sometime. There's a lot of reoccurring themes in the epistles that I think are really effective here.
So here's my let's land the plane.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing to me. Pretty much everybody in the scriptures was bivocational.
Yeah, well then listen, we'll talk about
technically not bivocational because the ministry didn't really pay them. Paul kind of.
One of the things in the epistles Paul talks about often with each of, as I've been listening through the epistles, every time he's like, hey, listen, thank you so much for helping me with my ministry. Or he says to another church, hey, I didn't ask you for any money. I went and did this, or this church over here helped me with my ministry instead. Like, he talks very openly about finances and how he made ends meet.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another conversation because
which I think it is. But again, but here's the deal. But Paul again and again and again, and I love how we're like, oh, but he was a super soldier Christian. I don't think he was a super soldier Christian. I think he was normal, just like every single one of us, because the Bible is again and again and again broken human beings trying to figure out how to be more like the one that is unbroken, Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And so again, and this guy was thrown into prison, and this guy had all these different things, and you can go, well, Paul didn't have a family. No, but we know Peter did.
Yeah,
we know many of the other disciples did. We know that many, but again, they didn't do everything. Mm-hmm. Even Jesus sent them out. He didn't do everything. I remember I was talking to a guy one time. He was like, I don't need, and I'm like, I'm so glad that Jesus didn't run his ministry like that. He invested it into other people and he let them go out and carry it on.
Amen.
And so again, here's my land the plane advocation.
Do it.
God's word has got the help, hope, and answers for you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Number 2, surround yourself with leaders that can help you to accomplish the job.
Yep.
Number 3, sit down and figure out how all that you are doing is, what are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? And I think the healthiest point of that conversation is you've got to give your spouse the right to tell you or to ask you to say no to things.
That's the personal pizza of a planning meeting.
Hey, you brought it up. I didn't even bring it up, Josh, this time. I love it. And my last one is, if you're frustrated at the results of all those first 3 things, maybe you do need to pray about finding something else to do.
Yeah, but
or to do it in a different way.
Find that balance of like, okay, is it you or is it Don't just rush into that.
No, and like we talked about, try not to make decisions when you're frustrated.
Yeah, no.
It's like walking into the grocery store hungry, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm a sinner, and I don't need to operate off my sin. Anyway, guys,
this has been Stacking Chairs, a youth ministry podcast about all things youth ministry, whether it's youth group or youth camp or whatever you find yourself involved with.
Yeah.
Josh, where can they find us again?
Guys, check us out at Stacking Chairs Pod everywhere, Stacking Chairs Pod at wol.org if you want to email us. Send us a question, send us a topic if you like. We're really excited about being back. I know that we haven't launched yet while we're recording, but you guys have been listening again for a few weeks at least. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Hey, Josh, a short little pause. What if somebody's sitting there going, why do you guys call it Stacking Chairs? Because the most youth group thing you could ever do is stack chairs. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to deal with in youth ministry, but most importantly, you need to stack those chairs!